Hi everybody, it is Catherine here from Continue the Magic, and this is your news update for the week of May 11th. Now this week we are talking about all things patents and permits. So we're going to be talking about AI weather patents and what that means for recommendations for you, as well as some new ride designs and changes to an entire land at Universal. So let's get started. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification button. This makes sure you never miss a news update, and it really helps me out at the channel. So the first part of this is the new weather sensors that they've been popping up around the park. So you may have seen the latest one, which is around Big Thunder Mountain, and it's kind of like a white rounded post. And this is a new technology of weather sensor. So this is going to give Disney next level information on a micro level. So they can kind of get micro environments around specific rides to know a bit more about the weather in a specific location. So there's a number of benefits to this new type of weather sensor. The first one is rainfall. So rather than a typical sensor where it captures the rain to let you know about the rainfall, this one senses it, has a haptic sensor. As soon as rain starts touching the sensor, it will notice it right away. So then rather than waiting for like a downpour, as soon as it starts spitting, they'll get those notifications around specific attractions. And that allows, the Disney staff to start cycling people through if they need to empty out that ride for the rain. It also gives them more information around wind. So obviously wind affects certain things like the balloon at Disney Springs. So that's important information for them as well. And of course, this is Florida, so we do need to measure the heat. It can get really hot, especially on those large pavement areas in the summer months. So this gives them information around that, but even more specifically around the humidity levels around certain attractions. So a water attraction might have a higher humidity level right around it, so feels a little bit hotter in that space versus another attraction. So why does this matter? This leans into the patent. So this patent is called Predicting and Mitigating Effects of Environmental Conditions. A bit of a mouthful there, but what it's going to do is it's actually combining the information from these weather sensors with your information. So it can start pulling in your data from the Disney My Experience app, so your age and other data points there. It can also use the sensors in the Magic Band Plus or in Apple Watches. So it can start determining your heart rate and different information around that so that it can predict when you are about to overheat. So if you're in those hot areas, it can actually personalize information and recommendations based on keeping you cool. So if it predicts that based on your age, your area, how long you've been outside, that you are likely at risk of overheating or dehydration, rather than just telling you, go have a drink or maybe sit down for a while, it'll actually start changing its recommendations to you. So then rather than recommending a lightning lane for Slinky Dog Dash, which is going to be outdoors and not going to help your situation, it might push you towards an indoor theater show or maybe a sit-down restaurant where you can go and cool off for a while. So I like the end result of what they're trying to do, which is to cater things to you and keep you cool and comfortable, especially in those summer months. Disney has been seeing a drop off in the summer just because it is so hot. People are often opting for different times of year to kind of mitigate that. So I think they're trying to find a way to bring people back in a safe way into the summer where they know that they will kind of be looked after, taken care of, and comfortable during their trip. The problem here is that is a lot of data points and a lot of your personal data points. So there is some things here that we need to look into of how is that information being shared? What companies is that being shared with? Because this is a partnership deal. So it'll be interesting as more information comes out and we start seeing exactly what data points are being pulled in here, how those are being shared, and then how those are being utilized. So this is a really interesting one. I'm interested to see how it goes, how they implement it, and how it is seen by the public. So let's move to a more fun topic, which is the new ride system patent. So this is going to use a new boom arm or articulating arm for vehicle attractions. Now, it's not the first time we've heard of a boom arm being used. You've are probably familiar with the Kuka arm that is used on Forbidden Journey at Universal Studios. This is a very different version of that. So we're not talking about something on a suspended track where you have very smooth movements. The difference here is that this is specifically for vehicles that are still supposedly on the road. So they're not floating in the air, but we have a physical vehicle. And then it's going to have a hidden track that'll either be under the ground or in a wall with an arm that comes out, and then that attaches to the chassis of your ride vehicle. So the difference here is you're not locked into a specific track. This gives a lot more flexibility on movement while still making it seem like you were on a roadway. So even if you think about trackless vehicles, yes, there is no track. They are still moving on very specific patterns in a very specific, smooth way. This is going to give a lot more control over the types of movements. So yes, you can drive along, but you'll also be able to have jerky movements. You'll be able to, go over a jump, hit some air, and then have kind of a crash land where you get that feedback from the vehicle as it would land. So there's a lot of really cool things that they can do here. So not only is it a way to control the ride vehicle, but it's a way to control the sensations that you have within those vehicles. So you can make it shake or move around or jerk, a lot of different options here. So the obvious use case here we are thinking is going to be the Cars Rally Racer. So obviously in the original concept art, you're not seeing a track there. There was talk about having a fully trackless system, but to do a fully trackless vehicle that is driverless, that is also safe but fast, was going to be a tough call, right? Like the ride vehicle that we had seen previously where we thought this might be for the Cars ride was moving at a very slow pace. So if you want a rally race, obviously you need quick, you need drifting. So this has the ability to do that, to enable that, so that you can be in the vehicle, you can drift around corners, you can go over a jump. It will feel like you were on a tracklet system. It will feel like you have a lot of control, but it will still be controlled by that arm underneath the ground. So the really cool thing about this is it adds even another level to this patent, which is that there's a guest interactive controller. So not only do you get this cool new ride system, but you can actually engage with it directly. So again, if we're looking at that, Cars Rally Racer, potentially you can have you driving it so that you can take the corners the way you want. You can decide if you're going over that jump, and it will react and let you drift depending on the choices that you make. So if this turns out the way it could, this will mean great things for that attraction. Definitely next level stuff here to have you drive your own rally race, have those feedbacks, have some airtime, and be able to actually control, the outcome of your ride. That is what makes it a true race, when it's, actually there's feedback and you can change the results with your actions. So very cool stuff here. Now, we're also likely to see this in other places. We could see it in the Monsters, Inc. coaster. There's some rumors about that. That one I'm less sure about. So if you think about how it works in the Monsters, Inc. movie, these doors are very much on a solid track. And yes, they, switch tracks throughout their journey, but it is a smooth, controlled track. So I don't know that putting this level of complexity into that ride necessarily makes sense when just a hanging coaster so perfectly fits what is already built into that movie. This would add a lot of extra complexity and potentially extra downtime as a result. So I don't know if it would be worth it for that attraction, but we'll see what they do. So obviously we also have Villains Land opening up. We could see this utilized here as well. There's also been rumors that the Shanghai Pirates ride mechanism is going to come for a Maleficent attraction. So again, a few options here, but I'm sure they'll make good use of this patent once this goes through. A couple new permits coming out. So we have Project Amazon and Project Bubbles, and these are both at the Boardwalk. So Project Amazon is going where the Big River Grill used to be. So the rumor here is that this might be a new sports bar. So obviously the ESPN club closed a while ago, so there is a lack of a sports bar in this area. So this is quite a large footprint. They think they might be putting in a new sports bar here with probably the latest and greatest in TVs. There might even be some like betting opportunities. Obviously, they're not going to do real money at Disney, but some of that interactive betting might occur there as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this space. So the other one, Project Bubbles, is going to go where the art gallery used to be. Now, based on the name Bubbles, there's a couple of concepts that have come out of this. One being a high-end like cocktail bar that would have champagne options. So that obviously ties into the bubbles there. They're kind of revitalizing this entire area for an adult alternative to Disney Springs. So it would make sense to have a high-end cocktail bar, and it would fit with the theming of the Boardwalk area. The other idea that is being thrown around with the name Bubbles is that it might be a high-end bath store, so something like a basin. So that is another option as well. Obviously, I'm going to lean towards, I think the cocktail bar makes the most sense. I think you'll definitely get a lot more attraction from that, and it will draw more people to that area again. It has been lackluster for the last little while. This is part of a larger project. Obviously, Jelly Rolls has been closed for a while. They are moving forward with the construction there. So a lot of changes coming to the Boardwalk. Clearly, they're trying to revitalize this entire space. So it'll be interesting to see what they do once this is all finished. And over at Universal, so they've been chipping away at Lost Continent for a while. I'm sad that Poseidon's Fury is gone. I actually really liked that attraction. I saw it again, a few years ago, and it's still that water tunnel is such a cool experience, and that effect in the last room of kind of transporting you. They do some incredible effects in there, but it was time to go. It was obviously not a huge draw for people anymore. This is going to be the last original IP to leave Universal. So we're going full into licensed IPs going forward. We don't have an official announcement on what is going to be coming here yet. They're just talking about the phased closures. So Mythos, we were hoping this might stay open. It is a highly rated restaurant, a nice sit-down restaurant in Universal. They have confirmed that Mythos is also going to close. We do have another year still, so if you want to go visit there and have one last meal, make sure you get that in. But we are going to be losing Mythos. Now, originally, there was thoughts that Zelda might come into this area. I think this made sense not only because it's a huge Nintendo property, and obviously Nintendo and Universal are already working together pretty closely, but also that thematically it kind of made sense that that mythology kind of would fit into the Last Continent and then transition to the Harry Potter area. The thought now is that Zelda is likely going into Epic Universe as part of a new attraction there. So now the thought is this will probably still be a Nintendo license, but we will be looking at Pokemon. So the cool thing here is that they're talking about an attraction as well as like an animal interactive experience. So you might get the opportunity to go and actually meet some of the Pokemon characters. So that would be very cool. I'm interested to see how they do that. They've obviously done cool things like this before. They do it really well with Hiccup and Toothless over in Epic. They also used to do a Triceratops encounter in the Jurassic Park area. So they do have a history of some really cool animal interactions. They do this with the raptor experience as well. So very cool if they were to apply this to Pokemon. Obviously, there is a lot of characters that you could bring in, potentially even rotate through, that you could have different characters at different times and kind of draw people back. So interesting to see what they do with this new area. Obviously, sad to see a land go, but it's time for progress, so we'll see what comes next. So one more smaller change, it's happening tomorrow for me, or it'll be yesterday for when this posts, but on May 12th, the horror makeup show is closing for a refurbishment. So this is going to stay a horror makeup show. They are going to keep that same mix of educating you about how horror makeup works in the movies, as well as kind of the humor that has always been so popular with this attraction. That is going to be staying. They're just updating it for the latest and greatest in horror movies. So they're going to update it for movies like The Black Phone, Megan, Five Nights at Freddy's. So things that are a little bit more relevant today, but overall it's going to stay that same kind of formula of that show we know and love. So those are your big news updates for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, and we will see you next time.